Well, it has been an absolutely mental last 24 hours as a Manchester City fan. I was sat here thinking that Manchester City had done the majority of our business coming towards the end of the window. We just needed to sell a couple of players, and that was all really that was going to happen with Manchester City. How wrong was I? Because the players that I thought that we were going to sell are not the players that we've been rumoured to sell today, or at least one of them specifically, which is Savinho, a player that has been at Manchester City for one season, but Tottenham Hotspur have come in for him. According to Fabrizio Romano last night, they are interested in getting a deal done for Savinho. They offered around the mark of 50 million euros. Apparently that was coming out this morning. Manchester City have turned down, wanting more, but this has collapsed the deck of cards, which is going to have knock-on effects throughout the window, and it has already begun to have knock-on effects today with all of the news coming out, and let's just get straight into it. But let's start off with the Savinho situation, because I feel like this is the linchpin of this transfer window in terms of if we need to go out and sign a new winger, because if we lose Savinho, I think that while obviously we've got a lot of backup in those wide areas, I still think that we would need to recruit in terms of having that extra available option in there, because coming into the new season, I was thinking that Savinho was in contention to be a starter for Manchester City, but he had a lot of competition. Off the right-hand side, Oscar Bob is fierce competition, as well as Phil Foden. Ryan Shirky can even play off the right. Then off the left-hand side as well, you've got Doku, you've got Marmoush. So he has a lot of competition coming into the new season, and that might be part of the reason why he's actually open to leaving the club, because he realizes that he might not be starting every week. But the big question is, do Manchester City need to sell him coming into the new season? And for me personally, I don't think that we need to sell him. And that is why I personally value him at about £80 million. And I know for some people that might seem quite absurd, but you've got to think about it. It's getting towards the later stages of the window. Savinho is a phenomenally talented player. Last season, he showed us that, yes, of course, there's still a lot to work on, but he's only 21 years of age, but he's got so much talent. And in that wide area specifically, with the pace, he's got the trickery, the crossing. I think that outside of maybe the decision making and finishing in the final third, he's got absolutely everything that you would want from a winger. And therefore, if he can put together those other two components of his game, which I just said about, I genuinely believe he could become a world-class winger. And because of the potential, and because we do not need to sell him this window, for me, that's why I would personally price him at £80 million. Now, does that mean he's worth that? And does that mean that Tottenham Hotspur should pay that for him? No, I don't think that that is what he's worth. And I think that that would be enough for Tottenham Hotspur to walk away from the deal. I personally, though, think that the club might be willing to accept less than 80 million for him, maybe closer towards the 70 million pound mark. Now, it's clear that they do not want to lose him for less than 50 million, because Tottenham have bid 50 million euros for him, which was swiftly turned down by the club. So on that front, we can say that Manchester City will not let him go for 50 million or less than that. The question is, at what point do Tottenham put a bid forward which is attractive to Manchester City? And I personally think that Manchester City might be willing to sell him for around the £50 million mark. And why is that? Well, that is because Manchester City have been strongly linked now since the Savinho news came out to Real Madrid's Rodrygo, who will roughly cost around the mark of 100 million euros. That is the price mark in which Fabrizio Romano posted today. And ultimately, he's a very attainable player. At the moment, Real Madrid are not that keen on him. Xabi Alonso doesn't really favour him that much. He's not going to start that much this season for them because of the way that Xabi Alonso wants to play. And therefore, that presents a market opportunity for Manchester City. And that's why I say I think that Manchester City might be willing to let Savinho go for 60 million, because they know that they can use that money towards Rodrygo and have Rodrygo, who is going to be an upgrade on Savinho coming into the new season. And while obviously I do think that we should value Savinho at a higher amount, I can understand why the club would make the decision to purchase Rodrygo and sell Savinho for a little bit of a cut price at this point in the window, because that would be an upgrade on the squad coming into the new season. For me, Rodrygo would be a starter off of the right-hand side for us. Oscar Bob would be competitive for that position. Phil Foden as well. Rodrygo can also play off the left-hand side, but Marmoush plays there as well, which means that Manchester City would have a front line of Marmoush, Haaland, and Rodrygo, which would be pretty disgusting, I can't lie. But also another player that Manchester City have been linked with today is Xavi Simons, a player that Chelsea have been chasing for weeks now. Manchester City have reportedly been coming in for him today. They are interested, reportedly. This one makes less sense to me. I can't lie. The Rodrygo one makes sense to me because he can play off the right and he can also play off the left-hand side. Xavi Simons is an attacking midfielder who can also play off the left-hand side. And in terms of replacing Savinho in this team, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't see why we would recruit in an attacking midfield / left wing position when we're losing 2 right wingers. But if you heard me closely there, you would have heard me say 2 right wingers. And the reason why I say 2 right wingers is because we had another piece of transfer news dropped on us today. James McAtee to Nottingham Forest is nearly a done deal. A verbal agreement is in place with Nottingham Forest between the club and him. In terms of Manchester City, it is not fully agreed as of yet. However, the here we go is soon, according to Fabrizio Romano. It looks like it's going to be close to a mark of £27 million plus add-ons. I'm not the biggest fan of this. I think that he's probably worth more towards the mark of 35 million, but we don't know what those add-ons are worth at this point in time. So we'll have to see once the deal is announced, but it does look like that is going to happen. That is probably going to be the most imminent out of the transfers, which we have talked about so far. As I said, I'm not a big fan of losing James McAtee because I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he is a player that could very much turn into a top player in the next 2 or 3 years. But unfortunately, there's not the squad or the space in the squad at the moment for McAtee. If we sold Savinho and kept McAtee, that would have made sense. But if we bring in a Rodrygo, for example, then there's not going to be space for McAtee, and he probably would be better served getting football elsewhere and us getting a transfer fee in for him. But if you thought that was the end of the transfer news, it is not. We've also got news updated on Jack Grealish today. A bombshell was dropped, a final breakthrough for Everton for Jack Grealish. A loan was announced by Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein today. We do not know at this moment in time how much of Jack Grealish's wages this is covering. I'm hoping that it's 100%, but it would at least be at the mark of 80% in my opinion to cover those wages. That's what Manchester City wanted from the Jack Grealish deal, is to get the majority of those wages off of the books. And there is also a £50 million transfer fee in there if Everton wish to trigger that coming into the new season. So we'll obviously have to see how Jack Grealish develops at Everton next season. I think he'll fit in well. I think that he's going to add an extra dynamic to them. They don't have that many attacking options in that squad, so I think that Jack Grealish will add a lot of quality, ball carrying, winning free kicks. Obviously, they've got some big centre backs in there, so they can lob the ball in from free kicks into the box. Maybe that can be an angle, an avenue, obviously, that Jack Grealish can create for them, as well as also creating chances. So I think that he will have a good season at Everton, personally. I think that if McAtee goes to Forest, which it's looking like, that is going to be a good move for him. I think he'll perform well there next season alongside Morgan Gibbs-White. And ultimately, there is so much that remains to be seen in this transfer window now, which has been blown open. But in regards to Savinho, Rodrygo, potentially Xavi Simons as well, we will have to see how that one progresses over the next week or so. Tottenham, as I said, have put in that €50 million bid, which has been rejected. We'll have to see what their next offer is, see if they can make an agreement for Savinho, and that will be the catalyst for whether Rodrygo comes to Manchester City or not, or whether we go in for him. A lot is to remain to be seen over the next couple of weeks now. I mean, I thought the transfer business was done for Manchester City. I thought we'd just sell a couple of players, a couple of our older players, thin out the squad a little bit coming into the new season, and that would be us done. But it appears not. There is still a lot of transfer news in regards to Manchester City left in the next coming weeks. But just outside of all of the transfer news I've told you here, I do think that there are still a considerable amount of players that we do need to sell in the squad coming into the remainder of this window. I think we still need to get rid of Ilkay Gundogan, Calvin Phillips, Manuel Akanji, Stefan Ortega. So those are 4 players just off the top of my head that Manchester City should be filtering out, in my opinion, between now and the end of the window to get some cash in. Potentially even as well, I would personally go for Javero Reed, but it doesn't look like we have any links to him whatsoever. So that is just my personal opinion. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of this transfer window develops. Do we get rid of those players, which I was just talking about? Do we bring in Rodrygo? Do we lose Savinho? Very much an open question coming into the final weeks of this transfer window. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think of Grealish and McAtee's moves away? What do you think about potentially Savinho joining Tottenham Hotspur? And would you be happy for Savinho to leave to Tottenham Hotspur if it meant we get Rodrygo or Xavi Simons? Let me know what you guys think of all of the transfer news. I have talked about in this video. It's gonna be interesting coming into the next couple of weeks, or probably the next week or so. We're gonna find out what's happening in regards to Savinho. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I will see you guys in another video. And if you did enjoy the video, hit the like button. And if you do want to see more of this content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I am going for 1,000 subscribers. I am almost there. So if you do hit the subscribe button, I'm very thankful to you. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.